If you're watching this right now, it's probably because you or someone you care about is dealing with the pain of a breakup. Breakups are really hard. And when you're in the middle of a breakup, the pain of a broken heart is devastating. Your heart isn't just sad, it physically aches. Your chest feels heavy, like something inside you has been torn out. When you see their name on your phone, your whole body sucks in a breath. It's a trauma response. And then you hesitate, not knowing how to respond, and you're hitting back before you even realize that you're doing it. It can feel like confusion, loneliness, and regret, all tangled into one emotional knot inside you. Part of what makes this process so hard is that you're not just missing the person, but the future that you imagined with them, the routines, the comfort, the identity you built around us. It can feel like emotional earthquake-level pain, where every familiar piece of your life suddenly feels unfamiliar and disorienting. And neurologically, your brain doesn't treat losing somebody like just losing a casual friend. It treats it like real loss. What I mean by that is that your brain literally lights up the same neural pain centers that respond to physical injury, the same ones activated by major grief and rejection. So it's no wonder that you feel broken and hollow and scattered, because you literally are in an emotional trauma response. Now, the reality and depth of your pain does not mean that you've made a mistake or that you're doing something wrong, nor does it mean that you're weak or that you failed in love. It means that you care deeply. And now your brain is trying desperately to adapt and to heal from where you are right now. Why does this feel so much harder than you think it should? Even when you know that breaking up was the right decision, it can still be really, really hard. I'm Dr. Denham Slade, and I help you cut through all of the confusing garbage online with real scientific information that you can trust. We do not talk about this topic nearly enough. We don't talk about, and there's not enough help out there, helping people know how to break up in a healthy way. Not dramatically, not avoidantly, not obsessively, but in actually a healthy way. The way you end a relationship can be just as important as how you start one. And if you've dated well, meaning that you've filtered for deal breakers and real compatibility, then breaking up is sometimes the absolute healthiest outcome possible for that relationship. But ending well and coping with the associated emotions requires skill. So let's walk through what that actually looks like. I'm going to give you several tips and tools to be able to break up in a healthy way. The first tip that I want to talk about is mindfulness. And that is what healthy feeling actually is. The very first thing that you need to understand is that feelings will be coped with. Whether you cope in a healthy way or an unhealthy way, your brain will do something to cope with what you're feeling. It has to. So if you don't direct how your brain copes with what you're feeling, your brain will do its very best to cope on its own. And unfortunately, our brains aren't usually very good at coping on their own. Our brains think in chemicals. It will frequently turn to substances or distractions or doom scrolling, things that can boost a little dopamine here and decrease a little cortisol there. Again, our brains are doing their best, but they're just frankly not very good at coping without direction. So instead of just letting your brain decide to have, meaningless hookups or whatever else it can think of to try to cope well, you want to direct that process. So know that you cannot heal from a breakup without feeling it. Feelings are healthy and normal. And if your relationship was important to you at all, you should be hurting right now. It would be really weird and abnormal and frankly wouldn't say much about your relationship if you weren't hurting right now. One of the very best ways to direct how your brain copes with what you're feeling, and the first skill that you can practice, is mindfulness. And the best definition of mindfulness that I know is this: allowing yourself to acknowledge and feel what you're feeling and allowing those feelings to flow through. Unhealthy emotional processing looks like two extremes. Either damning the feelings before you let yourself feel them, damning them before you let them in, or marinating and ruminating on them once they are inside. In other words, you either block them at the door, and when you do this, you leave your brain to cope with the feelings on its own, or you trap them inside. And when you do this, you frequently spiral into depression and anxiety. Healthy mindfulness is very different from either of these two extremes. First, you take the non-judgmental role of a curious observer. I feel sad. I feel rejected. I feel relieved. I feel lonely. I feel embarrassed. You acknowledge it. You name it. You put a label on it. Second, you then let it flow through and not get stuck by asking yourself, is there anything that I can do or need to do about this right now? It turns out that our brains are actually very good at coming up with healthy coping strategies when we direct them. For example, if you observe that you're feeling lonely and you ask yourself what you could do right now to cope with that, what might your brain come up with? Well, the opposite of lonely is feeling connected, right? So is there anything that you could do right now to connect with someone in a healthy way? You might be able to call up a close friend, or go see one of your kids, or go to an exercise class where you could interact with some of your buddies, or several other viable, healthy options to address the loneliness that you're feeling. And if there isn't anything that you can or need to do to healthfully cope right now, then healthy is changing the channel after you have acknowledged what it is that you're feeling. You do something healthy that provides enough cognitive competition to distract you. Calling someone and talking about something totally unrelated, listening to an audiobook, exercising, maybe reading, watching a show, or listening to the right kind of music. And a really important point with this, when you're trying to change the channel, right now when you're doing the channel changing, don't worry about what you might be feeling after you do the healthy coping that you're doing right now. Well, after, it's just going to come back. When healing from a breakup, healthy is taking the next healthiest step in front of you. It may not be the step that you wish you could take right now, but as you continue to take the next healthiest step in front of you, you will heal. You can walk through this process with any emotion at any time. As you do this, you're practicing mindfulness, letting the feelings move through. And you don't pull up a chair and invite it to stay for a while. Feelings are like waves. They are meant to pass. If you block them, they build up pressure. If you ruminate on them, they stagnate. The goal is flow. Acknowledge what you're feeling by being a curious observer and then allowing those feelings to flow through. The second skill that I want to talk to you about is somewhere where lots of people get stuck. They cope incorrectly because they don't know what kind of problem they're actually dealing with. There are two different types of problems: solvable problems and unsolvable problems. And coping, healthy coping anyway, looks very different for each of these different types of problems. So let's first talk about healthy coping with solvable problems. A solvable problem means that there is something actionable that you can do. So healthy coping with something that's solvable looks like acknowledging what the problem is, identifying the potential solutions, and taking concrete steps. Unhealthy coping with a solvable problem is avoidance. It's not making the call, not setting the boundary, not having the conversation, not doing the things that you know that you need to be doing. If the relationship that you're recovering from ended because of deal breakers or lack of fit, and you clearly assess that, then the breakup itself was the solution, which means now you're no longer solving. Now you're in the coping stage. So how do you cope with an unsolvable problem? A breakup is an unsolvable problem, at least in the short run. Unfortunately, you can't flip a switch and make it all better. It's going to take some time to heal. And depending on how long the relationship was, what the relationship was like, how deep and strong your feelings were, and what your temperament is, because different temperaments cope very differently and work on very different timetables from one another. And there are about 1 million other factors that come into play in determining how long it's going to take for you to be able to heal. Because of these and about 1 million other factors, it might take quite a while to get on the other side of this thing. I like to think about it like having a mountain to climb. When the healthy destination you're going to is on the other side of the mountain in front of you, the only way to get there is up and over. And until you get there, it needs to be treated like an unsolvable problem. You cannot make another person change. You cannot make it work if it fundamentally doesn't fit. You cannot undo the incompatibility, and you cannot make them be interested in having a healthy relationship with you and doing the things that it takes to create that. Trying to solve immediately an unsolvable problem is unhealthy coping. What does that look like? It looks like rehashing every conversation, trying to win the breakup, replaying what you could have said, texting again and again and again just to see, trying to fix something that has already been decided. Healthy coping with an unsolvable problem looks very different from those things. It looks like tending to your reservoir because unsolvable problems bleed your energy. You're going to be utilizing energy and resources just to try to be okay and to cope as long as the unsolvable problem exists. They deplete you. So you have to deposit more into the tank than you're losing through that unsolvable problem. What does that mean? That means sleeping, eating well, exercising, spiritual grounding, doing things that bring lightness into your life, spending time with safe people. You acknowledge what you're feeling and you let it flow through. And then you change the channel. You distract on purpose. That is not avoidance. This is about purposeful and healthy emotional regulation. You are choosing not to marinate. You're choosing not to obsessively solve something that cannot be solved right now. The third thing I want to talk to you about is something incredibly practical. You cannot heal if you keep reopening the wound. Your brain is wired for attachment. And when attachment turns on, logic turns off. When the attachment system is activated, logic turns off. If you keep exposing yourself to the person, their Instagram, their location, their stories, their last active, you are reactivating your attachment system every single time. Healing goes so much better when you reduce your ex's access to activate your attachment system. That means cutting off all contact that you can, unfollowing them on social media, removing location services. Don't check their stories. Don't accidentally drive by their house. Now, of course, if you have kids or under certain other circumstances or situations, you have to interact with them. When that's the case, doing things to set up clear boundaries is super duper important in order to mitigate their ability to rip your scab of healing off. Unfortunately, I don't have time in this video to really dive into this, but if you'd like more help around this specific challenge of recovery, comment below and I'll get you some resources. What I want you to know is that as you do these things well, you aren't being dramatic. What you're doing is choosing to be neurologically intelligent. You're setting up your brain to succeed because willpower alone will not override attachment activation, but structure will across time. Not immediately, but across time it will. Number 4, let's zoom out a little bit. Healthy and successful dating means 2 things. Healthy dating is assessment, purposeful, proactive, and aggressive assessing. And successful dating is filtration. You successfully date every time you filter unhealthy options or anytime you get healthfully filtered by somebody else. What do you assess? You're assessing 2 very important things. The first one is deal breakers. The second one is fit. So if healthy dating is assessment, what are you assessing? First, you're assessing deal breakers. Is there anything in this relationship or about this person that is an absolute deal breaker for me? The second thing that you're assessing is fit. Do they bring the things to the table that you want in your life and relationship? And do you bring the things to the table that they want in their life and relationships? And you're filtering out unhealthy options. If you've done that and it still led to a breakup, then this was successful dating or even successful divorcing. Not failure. The goal of dating is not to keep every single relationship. It's to filter wisely. You only want to end up with one good, healthy relationship. And if you reach the conclusion that the relationship that you were in was not that, ending it was a healthy choice and you've done well. Now the work becomes, can you grieve without ruminating? Can you regulate without obsessing? Can you tend to your reservoir instead of draining it further? Number 5, healthy breaking up looks like these following things: honest assessment, clean endings, emotional acknowledgement, no marinating, no solving what can't be solved, protecting and directing your brain. And most importantly, not turning this into evidence that you're broken. You're not broken. You filtered. You assessed. You chose. Now you need to heal. You being able to get through this hard time depends a lot on how healthy you choose to cope with it. And your brain is eager to please and to help you, but you've got to know how to direct it. If you're interested in understanding how your temperament, how your personality impacts the way that you attach, detach, cope, and ruminate, that's exactly what C.O.R.E is designed to help you understand. You cannot change your temperament, but you can learn how to work with it. Things like breakups, these kind of emotional moments, really tend to highlight the default ways that our temperament determines how we cope. And when you learn how to cope with how your brain naturally works, even heartbreak becomes something that you move through, not something that defines you. Take the free C.O.R.E assessment at whatsmycore.com to find out what your temperament is. If you felt like this information was helpful, I've got lots of other videos to help you become a more healthy version of yourself and to learn how to regulate your emotions in healthy ways.